The message came at exactly 3:14 in the morning, and it broke every rule the galaxy had ever known. Fleet Admiral Vora Katesh of the Sunfire Empire stood on the bridge of her flagship and stared at the screen. She had crushed 40 worlds. She had never once been told no. But now, floating in the black between the stars, a single line of text glowed on her display in plain, simple words. You may not cross this border. Turn back. Terran command. Vora's 3 eyes narrowed. Her golden scales caught the light of the ship's warning lamps. She had ruled the outer arm of the galaxy for 200 years, and in all that time no species had dared to speak to her like this. Not the Vereen, not the Cloud Kings, not even the ancient weavers who had built the star roads. Who sent this? She asked. Her second in command, a thin gray officer named Sohel, checked his panel twice before answering. His voice shook. The humans, Admiral. The little apes from the wet planet. They have drawn a line in space. Vora laughed. It was a deep, rolling sound that filled the whole bridge. Around her, the crew relaxed a little, because when the Admiral laughed, it meant someone was about to die. The humans, she said. The ones who trade fruit and music. The ones with ships made of scrap. They want to tell the Sunfire Empire where it can go. Yes, Admiral. Show me their fleet. Sohel tapped the panel. The main screen switched to a long-range scan of the border zone. And there, spread across the dark, sat the human ships. There were only 12 of them. Vora had brought 900. She smiled, and her sharp teeth gleamed. Send them a reply, she said. Tell them the Sunfire Empire crosses where it pleases. Tell them we will pass through their little line in 1 hour. And tell them that if even one human ship is still there when we arrive, we will remember it as the last mistake they ever made. Sohel sent the message. The humans did not reply. And that silence, though Vora did not know it yet, was the most dangerous sound in the galaxy. To understand why 12 human ships stood against 900, you have to go back 3 years, to the day the galaxy first learned that Earth existed. Back then, nobody feared humans. Nobody even respected them. The galaxy was old, older than anyone could count, and it was ruled by species that had crossed the stars while humans were still banging rocks together. When Earth finally built its first jump drive and pushed out into the wider dark, the great powers barely noticed. A new species crawling out of its cradle was nothing new. It happened every few centuries. Most of them died young. The first alien to meet a human was a trader named Pelhuman, a soft round creature from the merchant guild of Hab. He drifted his little cargo ship up to a human colony ship near a dead star, expecting to find frightened primitives. Instead, a human woman opened a channel, smiled at him, and offered him coffee. He did not know what coffee was. He drank it anyway. Then he drank 6 more cups and did not sleep for 2 days. Pelhuman went home and told everyone that the humans were friendly, generous, and a little bit strange. He said they gave things away for free. He said they cried when they were happy. He said they had 1,000 kinds of music and would play all of it for you if you only asked. The Merchant Guild wrote it all down and filed it under a single word in their records: harmless. That word would haunt the galaxy for the rest of its history. The Sunfire Empire was not part of the Merchant Guild. The Sunfire Empire did not trade. It took. For 2 centuries, the Empire had swallowed worlds along the outer arm. Their method was simple. A fleet would arrive at a planet, block out the sun, and offer a choice. Bow, and pay tribute forever. Refuse, and burn. Most bowed. The ones who burned served as lessons for the rest. The Sunfire soldiers were tall and covered in golden scales, with 3 eyes and long, powerful arms. They believed they were the chosen children of the galaxy's first star. They believed everything under the light belonged to them. And for a very long time, the facts had agreed. But the Empire had a problem. and it was getting worse. The outer arm was running dry. The worlds they had conquered were old and tired. Their minds gave less each year. Their people wanted more. And an empire that stops growing starts to die. So Admiral Vorakatesh looked at her star charts and searched for fresh worlds to take. Her eyes moved along the edge of the map, past the borders of the known powers, into a quiet green region that nobody had bothered to claim. It was full of water planets. Rich ones, young ones. It was human space. The humans had known this day was coming for a long time. On Earth, in a deep bunker under a mountain in a place that used to be called Colorado, sat the heart of Terran Command. It was not a grand place. The walls were plain gray. The chairs were old and squeaked. The coffee, as always, was terrible. But the people inside it carried the weight of the whole species on their shoulders. At the center of it all sat a woman named Admiral Grace Okonkwo. She was 62 years old. Her hair was short and white. Her hands were steady. She had spent 40 years in the Terran fleet, and she had seen humanity go from a frightened planet hiding in the dark to a small but stubborn power holding a corner of the galaxy. She had buried more friends than she could count, and she had made a promise a long time ago that she would never let Earth be swallowed the way so many worlds had been swallowed before. When the reports came in about the Sunfire fleet massing at the border, Grace did not panic. She poured herself a cup of the terrible coffee, sat down at the war table, and studied the numbers. 900 enemy ships, 12 of ours. Her aide, a young officer named Danny Reyes, stood beside her with his hands twisted together. He was 28, and this was his first real crisis. "Admiral," he said, "the math doesn't work. It's not even close. We can't win this." "I know the math, Danny." "Then why are we sending anyone at all? 12 ships. They'll be gone. In minutes." Grace looked up at him. Her eyes were tired but kind. "Do you know why the Sunfire Empire has never lost a war? Because they're stronger." "No." She shook her head slowly. "Because everyone believes the math. Everyone looks at the numbers and gives up before the fight even starts. That's their real weapon. Not the ships. The fear." She took a sip of coffee and made a face at how bad it was. "So we're going to do the one thing nobody in this galaxy has done in 200 years. What's that? We're going to say no, and we're going to mean it." The 12 human ships that sat at the border were not warships. Not really. The galaxy did not know it yet, but humanity had never built a proper battle fleet. There had not been time. What Earth had instead was a strange, patched-together collection of vessels. Converted freighters, old colony ships, mining haulers with weapons bolted onto their hulls. To any alien scanner, they looked like junk. The lead ship was called the Second Chance. Her captain was a man named Isaac Cole. Isaac was 50 years old, broad in the shoulders, with a gray beard and a limp from an old accident. He had spent most of his life flying cargo between the human colonies. He was not a hero. He had never wanted to be one. He had a wife named Mara back on the colony world of New Haven, and 2 grown daughters, and a small house with a garden that he missed more than anything in the world. Now he sat in the command chair of the Second Chance, staring at the enemy fleet on his screen, and he thought about that garden. His comms officer was a young woman named Lena Foss. She had bright eyes and a habit of talking too fast when she was scared. "Captain," she said, "the Sunfire flagship just sent another message. They say they're coming through in 1 hour. Any change in their formation?" "No, sir. They're just sitting there, waiting." Isaac nodded slowly. He looked around his bridge at the faces of his small crew. They were all volunteers. Every single one of them had known the odds before they signed on, and they had come anyway. "Lena," he said, "put me through to all 12 ships." She flipped a switch. "You're live, Captain." Isaac took a breath. When he spoke, his voice was calm and low. the voice of a man who had spent 30 years talking pilots through storms. "This is Cole," he said. "I'm not going to lie to you. You all know what's out there. 900 ships. And there's 12 of us." He paused. Some smart people back home did the math. They say we can't win. He let that sit for a moment. "But here's the thing about the math," Isaac went on. "It only counts ships. It doesn't count what's inside them. It doesn't count the fact that behind us is New Haven and Earth and every kid who's ever looked up at the stars and felt safe. The Sunfire Empire has burned 40 worlds because 40 worlds looked at the numbers and quit. We're not going to quit." His voice grew rough. "We hold the line. Not because we're strong. Because it's home. Cole out." He cut the channel. The bridge was silent. Then Lena, wiping her eyes, whispered, "That was a pretty good speech, Captain." Isaac managed a tired smile. "I've had a while to think about it." The hour passed slowly. On the Sunfire flagship, Admiral Vora grew bored. She had expected the humans to flee. That was the normal way of things. A weak species sees a strong fleet, understands the truth, and runs. But the humans had not run. They just sat there, 12 tiny lights against the dark, waiting. "They must be planning something," said Sohul nervously. "They are planning to die," Vora said. "It only feels like a plan." She rose from her throne and stretched her long golden arms. "Sound the advance. We cross the border. Do not slow down for the humans. Roll over them like they are dust." The order went out. Across 900 ships, engines flared to life. The Sunfire fleet began to move, a wall of golden light sliding toward the border, toward the 12 small ships, toward human space. On the second chance, Lena's voice cracked. "Captain, they're moving. All of them. They're coming." Isaac gripped the arms of his chair. "Steady," he said. "Everybody steady." He opened the channel to Terran Command. "Admiral Okonkwo, this is Cole. They've started their advance. We are holding position. Requesting final orders." Down in the mountain, Grace Okonkwo stood over the war table. Danny Reyes stared at her, his face white. The whole room held its breath. Grace looked at the display, at the 12 tiny dots and the wall of 900 crashing toward them. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as steel. "Captain Cole," she said, "hold the line. Do not fire first. Make them cross it. Make the whole galaxy watch them cross it." Isaac frowned. "Admiral, if we let them fire first, we'll lose ships before we." "I know. Hold the line anyway. Trust me, Isaac." Her voice softened, just for a second. "I'm not sending you out there to die for nothing. Just hold on. Help is coming." The channel closed. On the bridge of the second chance, Isaac stared at the screen. "Help is coming," she had said. But there was no help. There were no more ships. Everyone knew that. The 12 at the border were all humanity had ready. So what did she mean? Isaac did not have time to wonder. Because the Sunfire fleet had reached the line. The first shots came from the Empire. Golden lances of fire tore across space and slammed into the human ships. The Wanderer, an old colony vessel on the left flank, took a direct hit and cracked open like an egg. Air and fire and bodies spilled into the black. 40 people died in a single heartbeat. "Wanderer is gone," Lena screamed. "Captain, they're firing on all of us." "Evasive," Isaac shouted. "Break formation, spread out, make them work for it. Return fire on my mark." The 11 surviving human ships scattered like a handful of seeds thrown into the wind. Sunfire fire chased them, filling space with deadly light. The second chance rolled hard to the left, her old hull groaning, as a golden lance missed her by a hair. "Mark," Isaac yelled. "Fire everything." Humanity fired back. And here is where the galaxy's story began to change, though nobody understood it yet. Because human weapons were strange. The great powers of the galaxy used energy weapons, clean and precise. They had done so for 10,000 years. Energy weapons were elegant. They could be aimed by computers, tuned to exact power levels, fired with perfect control. They were the mark of a civilized species. Nobody used anything else. Humans used mass. Human ships fired chunks of metal. Ugly, simple, brutal chunks of metal, accelerated to unthinkable speeds by long magnetic rails. There was nothing elegant about it. It was the kind of weapon a species invents when it has more stubbornness than wisdom, when it looks at a problem and thinks, what if we just threw something really hard? The Sunfire shields were built to stop energy. They had never been tested against a 2-ton slug moving at a fraction of light speed. The first human round hit a Sunfire cruiser and went straight through it, in one side and out the other, leaving 2 ragged holes and a cloud of frozen air. The cruiser's shield did not even flicker, because the shield had nothing to grab. You cannot stop a rock with a wall of light. By the first star, Sohel whispered on the flagship bridge. What are they shooting? Vora leaned forward, her 3 eyes wide. Metal, she said slowly. They are shooting metal at us. Like children throwing stones. She could not decide whether to laugh or to worry. How primitive. How? Another human slug punched through a second cruiser. Then a third. Effective. For the first time in 200 years, the Sunfire Empire took losses in the opening minutes of a battle. But 11 ships, no matter how they fired, could not stop 900. The humans killed cruiser after cruiser, but there were always more. Slowly, terribly, the Golden Fleet closed in. The Ironwood died. Then the Blue Marble. Then the Long Road. Each one took several Sunfire ships with it, but each one died all the same. Every death was a family that would never come home. Isaac watched his fleet shrink and felt each loss like a knife. 8 ships. Then 7. Then 5. Captain, Lena said, her voice hollow. We can't hold much longer. There's too many of them. Isaac stared at the screen. Where was the help Okonkwo had promised? He opened the channel again. Command, this is Cole. We're down to 5 ships. If there's a plan, now's the time. We can't. And then the stars behind the human fleet began to bend. It started as a shimmer. A ripple in the dark, like heat rising off a road on a summer day. Then space itself seemed to fold and tear, and out of the tear came ships. Not human ships. They were enormous, pale silver vessels shaped like the shells of sea creatures, curved and smooth and impossibly old. They made no sound. They gave off no threat. They simply appeared, dozens of them, sliding into the space behind the human fleet, and every scanner in the region screamed at once because none of the aliens recognized what they were looking at. On the Sunfire flagship, alarms howled. Sohel's claws flew across his panel. Admiral. Unknown ships appearing behind the human line. Dozens of them. The signature, it's not in any database. It's not anything. Vora arose from her throne, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt something cold move through her chest. Identify them, she snapped. Now. I can't. There's nothing to match. It's like they don't exist. On the second chance, Isaac stared at the silver ships in wonder. Lena, he breathed, who are they? Are they with us? Lena's hands trembled over her console. Captain, I'm getting a message. It's coming from the biggest one. Captain, it's in perfect English. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge. It was calm, ancient, and unbearably sad. It was neither male nor female. It sounded like whine through an old forest. Children of Earth, the voice said, we have watched you for a very long time. We watched you crawl out of the water. We watched you learn fire. We watched you reach for the stars. And today we watched you stand against a fleet 900 strong, 12 against 900, for no reason but love of home. The voice paused. We are the Weavers. We built the star roads before your son was born, and we have decided that you are worth protecting. Isaac's mouth went dry. The Weavers. Every child in the galaxy knew the name. They were legends, myths, the ghosts who had shaped the galaxy and then vanished 1,000,000 years ago. Nobody believed they were still real. But here they were. The Sunfire fleet froze. Admiral Vora stood on her bridge and stared at the silver ships and felt the ground of the whole galaxy shift beneath her feet. The Weavers were not supposed to exist. They were a bedtime story. And now they were here, taking the side of the water apes. "Admiral," Sohel whispered. "What do we do?" Vora's mind raced. She had 900 ships. But she had no idea what the Weaver ships could do. That was the terror of it. An enemy you understand can be beaten. An enemy you do not understand can be anything at all. She made a choice. It was the wrong one, but she did not know that yet. "We do not run from ghosts," she said. "Whatever these silver things are, they have shown no weapons. They are trying to frighten us. The Sunfire Empire is not frightened." She raised her voice. "All ships, resume the advance. Destroy the human vessels. Ignore the silver ships. Show the galaxy that the Empire fears nothing." The fleet moved forward again, and the Weavers acted. There was no great flash, no thunder. The silver ships simply hummed, a deep vibration that every crew in the region felt in their bones, in their teeth, in the very center of their being. And then, along the border, space itself changed. A wall appeared, not a wall of metal or energy, a wall of pure, shining light, stretching up and down and sideways as far as any scanner could see. It ran along the exact line the humans had drawn, dividing human space from Sunfire space, and it glowed with a soft, patient, unstoppable radiance. The Sunfire ships that had already crossed the line found themselves trapped on the human side, and when they tried to fire at the humans, their weapons simply stopped working. Every energy weapon in the fleet went dark at once. "Weapons offline," Sohel cried. "All weapons. I can't restart them. Admiral, we're defenseless." Vora's 3 eyes went wide. "How? How is this possible?" The Weaver voice spoke again, and now it filled every ship on both sides, in every language at once. "The border stands," it said. "You will not cross it. Those of you who already have, you may leave in peace, this one time. But hear us, Sunfire Empire. The children of Earth are under our protection now. Cross this line again, and you will not find mercy a second time." It should have ended there. It almost did. The Sunfire ships that had crossed the border began to pull back, retreating through gaps in the wall of light that the Weavers opened just for them. It was a humiliation the Empire had never known. 900 ships, turned back by 12, by ghosts, by a wall. But Admiral Vora Katesh had ruled for 200 years, and she did not know how to lose. As her fleet retreated, a black rage filled her. She thought of the 40 worlds she had burned. She thought of her people, hungry and demanding. She thought of what it would mean to go home defeated by apes and ghosts. She could not do it. "Sohel," she said quietly. "The old weapon. The one from the deep vault. Is it aboard?" Sohel went very still. "Admiral, the Sunkiller? You cannot mean to. Is it aboard?" "Yes, but it is forbidden. The Council sealed it 100 years ago. If we use it, we break the oldest law of the Empire. It does not just destroy ships. It burns the light out of a whole star system. Everything. Every world. Every life." Vora stared at the wall of light. On the other side of it, the human colony world of New Haven glowed blue and green and peaceful, full of gardens and children and songs. "Charge it," she said. "Admiral, charge it. If we cannot rule these worlds, then no one will have them. If the ghosts want to protect the apes, let them protect a system of ashes. Charge the Sunkiller." On the second chance, the scanners caught it first. A massive energy spike building deep inside the Sunfire flagship. Lena's face drained of all color. "Captain," she said, "something's charging on the enemy flagship. Something huge. The readings are off the scale. I've never seen anything like it." Isaac felt his blood run cold. "Weavers," he called out. "Do you see it? Whatever they're building, it's aimed past us. It's aimed at New Haven." The Weaver voice returned, but now it was troubled. "We see it. It is a star killer. A weapon of the old wars. We had thought them all destroyed." A pause. "Children of Earth. We can hold the wall. We can stop their ships. But this weapon fires from within their own space, and the wall does not reach there. If they fire it, we cannot stop it in time. New Haven will die." The bridge went silent. New Haven. 8 million people. Isaac's wife Mara. His 2 daughters. His home. His garden. "How long until they can fire?" Isaac asked. "For minutes," Lena whispered. "For minutes." Isaac's mind raced. The wall of light stood between the human fleet and the Sunfire ships. The Weavers could stop anything that tried to cross toward New Haven. But the Starkiller did not need to cross. It would fire straight through, over the wall, into the heart of human space. Unless the flagship itself was destroyed before it could fire. And the flagship was on the far side of the wall. Isaac looked at the wall of light. He looked at the flagship glowing behind it. And he understood, with a terrible clarity, what had to happen. "Weavers," he said slowly. "The wall stops the Sunfire from crossing into our space. But can something cross the other way? From our side to theirs?" The Weaver voice was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," it said. "The wall was made to keep them out, not to keep you in. A human ship could pass through to the far side." Another pause. "But once through, it would be alone. 900 ships. No wall to protect it. No way back before the weapon fires. It would be a journey with no return." Isaac closed his eyes. He thought of Mara. He thought of the way she laughed. He thought of his daughters when they were small, running through the garden. He thought of all of it, all the small, ordinary, beautiful things that made up a life. And then he thought of 8 million people who would never see any of it again if he did nothing. "Lena," he said. His voice did not shake. "Send a message to my wife. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm sorry I won't make it home for dinner." He almost smiled. "She'll know what it means." Lena stared at him with tears streaming down her face. "Captain, no. Please. There has to be another way." "There isn't. You know there isn't." He stood up from his chair. "All hands, this is Cole. I'm taking the second chance through the wall. I'm going to stop that weapon. The rest of you, get behind the Weaver line and stay there. That's an order. My last one." He looked around the bridge at his crew, at these people he had come to love. "It's been an honor. Now everybody get to the escape pods. This is a one-man trip." Nobody moved. "That's an order," he barked. Lena wiped her face and lifted her chin. "With respect, Captain," she said, "you'll need someone to run comms." "Sir." One by one, the crew of the Second Chance sat back down at their stations. Not one of them left. And Isaac Cole, 50 years old, cargo pilot, father, husband, looked at his crew and felt his heart break and swell at the same time. "You idiots," he said softly. "You beautiful idiots." "Family stays together, Captain," said his engineer, an old man named Boone. "Even the family you find out here." Isaac nodded. He could not speak. He sat back down in his chair, and then he gripped the controls and pointed the Second Chance at the wall of light. "Weavers," he said, "open the door." The wall parted. The Second Chance, an old cargo freighter with weapons bolted to her sides, slipped through the shining barrier into the space beyond, into the middle of 900 enemy ships, and the door closed behind her. On the Sunfire flagship, Sohel saw it happen. "Admiral, one human ship has come through the wall. It's on our side. It's heading straight for us." Vora turned from the charging weapon and looked at the tiny ship racing toward her flagship. One ship, against 900. She could not understand it. It made no sense. It was madness. Destroy it, she said. But the words came out uncertain. Because a part of her, an old and honest part she had buried long ago, understood exactly what she was looking at. She was looking at courage so pure it did not care about the math. The Sunfire fleet turned its guns on the second chance. And the second chance charged straight into hell. What happened next, the survivors would talk about for 1,000 years. The little human ship flew through the Sunfire fleet like a stone skipping across water. Golden fire tore at her from every direction. Her shields, weak to begin with, buckled within seconds. Then her armor began to peel away. But she did not slow. She did not turn. She fired her rail guns as she went, and every slug she threw punched clean through another Sunfire ship, and she never once stopped moving toward the flagship. Faster! Isaac shouted over the roar of dying systems. Boone, give me everything. Burn the engines. I don't care if they melt. They're already melting, Captain. Boone shouted back, laughing like a madman. She's giving you everything she's got. A Sunfire lance tore through the second chance port side. The ship screamed. Half the bridge went dark. Lena was thrown from her chair, blood on her face, but she crawled back and grabbed her console. Captain, she gasped, we're falling apart. Hull breaches on every deck. Just get me to that flagship, Isaac said through gritted teeth. Just get me there. The flagship filled the screen now. It was enormous, a city of gold, its great weapon glowing white-hot along its spine as the Starkiller reached full charge. 10 seconds to weapon fire. Lena cried. The second chance was dying. Her engines were gone. Her weapons were gone. She was nothing now but a burning wreck coasting on the last of her speed. But her speed was enormous. And she was pointed straight at the heart of the flagship, straight at the glowing weapon. Isaac looked at the flagship. He thought of New Haven. He thought of Mara. I'm sorry I won't make it home, he whispered. But I'm going to make sure everyone else does. He drove the second chance into the Starkiller. The freighter, moving faster than any missile, struck the flagship's spine at the exact spot where the weapon glowed brightest. 12,000 tons of metal and courage slammed into the fully charged Starkiller. The explosion turned night into day. The Sunfire flagship did not just die. It ceased to exist. The overloaded Starkiller, struck at the moment of firing, unleashed all its terrible power at once, but instead of pouring out toward New Haven, it poured into the ship that carried it. A new star bloomed in the dark, white and blinding and huge, and when it faded, the flagship was gone. Admiral Vora was gone, and the second chance, with all her brave and foolish crew, was gone too. For a moment, the entire Sunfire fleet simply drifted, stunned, leaderless, watching the light fade where their flagship had been. On the human side of the wall, the surviving crews watched too. Nobody spoke. Nobody could. Isaac Cole and everyone aboard the second chance had traded their lives for 8 million strangers and had done it without a moment's hesitation. Deep in the mountain in Colorado, Admiral Grace Okonkwo stood over the war table with tears running down her old face. Danny Reyes stood beside her, weeping openly. They did it, Grace whispered. They actually did it. The Weaver voice spoke one final time, and it carried a note that none of the aliens had ever heard from the Ancient Ones before. It carried grief. The children of Earth have shown us something today, the voice said, filling every ship in the region. Something we had forgotten in our long silence. That the smallest life can hold the greatest heart. That love is stronger than any fleet. We built the star roads. We shaped 100,000 worlds. But in a million years, we never built anything as strong as what one human crew showed us in the last 10 minutes. A pause. Sunfire Empire. Take your ships and go. And carry this message to every world in the galaxy. Earth is under our protection. And more than that, Earth is worth protecting. The Sunfire fleet turned and fled into the dark, and it did not stop running for a very long time. But this is not where the story ends. Because there was a secret in all of this, a secret buried so deep that not even the humans knew it. And the Weavers were about to reveal it. 3 days after the battle, a single Weaver ship descended through the clouds of Earth and landed in the desert outside Terran Command. It was the first time in 1,000,000 years that the Ancient Ones had touched a living world. The whole planet held its breath. Admiral Grace Okonkwo went out to meet them alone. She was old and tired, and her heart was heavy with all the dead, but she straightened her uniform and walked out across the sand to where the great silver ship waited, and she stood before it with her chin high. A door opened in the side of the ship, and out of it came a Weaver. Nobody had ever seen one before. It was tall, taller than any human, and it seemed to be made of soft silver light gathered into the shape of a body. It had no face, exactly, but where a face should be there was a gentle glow, and when it looked at Grace, she felt as though she were being seen all the way down to her soul. Admiral Okonkwo, the Weaver said. Its voice was the same one that had spoken in the battle. We have come to tell you the truth. It is a truth we have kept for a very long time. We think you have earned it. Grace's throat was tight. What truth? The Weaver was quiet for a long moment. Then it said, humanity is not an accident. We made you. Grace felt the sand shift under her feet. What? 1,000,000 years ago, the Weaver said, we were dying. Not our bodies. Our hearts. We had built everything. We had seen everything. We had grown so old and so wise and so powerful that we forgot how to feel. We forgot why anything mattered. We could shape stars, but we could no longer feel joy at their light. We were becoming ghosts long before we vanished. The silver glow flickered with something like sadness. We knew we were fading. So before we withdrew from the galaxy, we made a choice. We planted a seed. A new kind of life. One that would not be born wise or powerful. One that would have to earn everything the hard way. One that would suffer and struggle and love and lose and never, ever give up. The Weaver looked at her. We planted you on a small blue world. And then we hid ourselves away, and we watched, and we waited to see what you would become. Grace could barely breathe. But why? Why us? Because we had lost something, the Weaver said, and we hoped that you might grow it back. We had lost the thing that makes life worth living. We could not remember it, but we thought that if we made a species that had to fight for every single thing, that had short lives and fragile bodies and hearts that break so easily, then maybe, someday, that species would rediscover what we had lost. And maybe they would remind us. The glow brightened. We watched you for 1,000,000 years, Admiral. We watched you build and destroy and build again. We watched your wars and your cruelty, and we nearly gave up hope. But we also watched a mother sing to a dying child. We watched a stranger give his coat to a beggar. We watched 12 ships stand against 900 for no reason but love of home. And 3 days ago, we watched a cargo pilot named Isaac Cole fly his ship into a star to save 8,000,000 people he would never meet. The Weaver's voice trembled. And in that moment, after 1,000,000 years of watching, we finally remembered. Tears streamed down Grace's face. Remembered what? What it feels like to care, the Weaver said softly. You did what we could not. You grew the thing we lost. You are not our servants. You are not our pets. You are our teachers. The student has surpassed the master. And so we have come out of hiding, after all this time, not to rule you, but to protect you. Because a galaxy without humanity is a galaxy without a heart. And we will not let anyone put that light out. The truth spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans were the children of the Weavers. The frightened little water apes that everyone had dismissed as harmless were the chosen heirs of the oldest and greatest civilization that had ever existed. And they had been placed in the galaxy for one purpose: to carry the light that even the gods had lost. The great powers, who had ignored Earth for so long, now scrambled to make peace with it. The Merchant Guild sent gifts. The Cloud Kings sent apologies. The Vereen offered an alliance. Even the broken remnants of the Sunfire Empire sent envoys, begging forgiveness, terrified of the tiny species they had once tried to burn. But humanity did not gloat. Humanity did not demand tribute. When the Sunfire envoys arrived, shaking with fear, expecting revenge for their crimes, Grace Okonkwo met them and did the one thing they never expected. She forgave them. "Your admiral is dead," she told them. "Your fleet is broken. You came here expecting us to finish you off. That's what you would have done." She shook her head slowly. "But we're not you. We lost a lot of good people at that border. Isaac Cole died out there. His whole crew died out there. And you know what he would have wanted? He'd have wanted your children to grow up in peace. So here's our answer. Go home. Feed your people. Stop burning worlds. And if you ever need help, ask and we'll come." She leaned forward. "That's the human way. We don't rule. We reach out our hand." The Sunfire envoys wept. They had never in their long, cruel history been shown mercy. And in that mercy, something in their broken empire began, slowly, to heal. 1 year later, a monument was raised on New Haven. It stood in the center of the capital city, in a great green park full of gardens, and it was shaped like a ship, not a warship, a simple cargo freighter, humble and worn, with the name Second Chance carved into her hull. Around her base were the names of every soul who had died at the border. Isaac Cole, Lena Foss, Boone, all of them, the 12 ships, and everyone aboard. On the day the monument was unveiled, 8 million people came. They came because they were alive. They came because a man they had never met had flown his ship into a star so that they could keep living, keep loving, keep tending their gardens. Mara Cole stood at the front of the crowd. She was older now, her hair gray, her eyes soft with a grief that would never fully leave her. Beside her stood her 2 daughters, and their children, Isaac's grandchildren, who would grow up in a galaxy that was safe because of what he had done. Grace Okonkwo, retired now, stood beside Mara. And beside them both stood a tall figure of soft silver light, for the Weaver had come to honor the man who had reminded the gods how to feel. When it was time, Mara stepped up to speak. Her voice shook, but she pushed through it. "My husband was not a hero," she said. "He was a cargo pilot. He grumbled about the weather. He burned toast. He fell asleep in his chair every night before the show was over." A soft laugh moved through the crowd, gentle and full of love. "He was just an ordinary man. And that's the thing I want you all to remember. He was ordinary. Any one of you could have done what he did. Because that's what we are. That's what it means to be human. When it matters most, ordinary people do impossible things." She looked up at the sky, at the stars beginning to appear in the evening light. "The Weavers say they made us. Maybe that's true, but I think Isaac would say it doesn't matter who made us. What matters is what we choose to be." She placed her hand on the cold metal of the monument, on her husband's name. He chose love. Every time. Right to the end. She stepped back. And across the whole planet, across the whole galaxy where the ceremony was being watched by 1,000 species who had once called humanity harmless, there was silence. Not the silence of fear, the silence of respect. The Weaver stepped forward then. It reached out one hand of silver light and touched the monument, and where it touched, a soft glow spread across the whole ship, gentle and warm, and it did not fade. It would never fade. The Weavers had made it so. For as long as humanity endured, the second chance would shine. "We searched for 1,000,000 years," the Weavers said, its voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy, for the thing we had lost. We looked in the stars. We looked in the deep places between the stars. We looked in all our knowledge and all our power, and we did not find it. It turned to face the crowd, to face all of humanity, small and fragile and endlessly brave. We found it at last in a cargo pilot's final flight. We found it in 12 ships that would not run. We found it in a widow who chose to forgive. The greatest force in this galaxy is not the fleet, nor the weapon, nor the ancient machine. It is the heart of an ordinary being who chooses love when love costs everything. The Weaver looked up at the darkening sky, at the countless stars, at the galaxy that would never be the same. Long ago, we built the roads between the stars, it said softly. But it took the children of Earth to remind us why the roads were worth building at all. And as the last light of day faded from the sky over New Haven, 8 million people looked up at the stars their world was safe to see. And the monument glowed softly in the gathering dark, a small worn cargo ship shining forever in a park full of gardens, keeping its endless watch over the home it had died to save.